Hey everybody, Blood and Water is just about here, and I've got the spoilers to prove it, so let's get started. Right off the bat, we've got a nifty new Anarch ID. This is Alice Merchant. She has 0 link, she's a 50-15, and her ability is the first time you make a successful run on archives each turn, the Corp must trash 1 card from HQ. Now, hold on a sec, I know she has that kind of look that says, "Look, Mom, I told you my name's not Alice, it's Star Sparkle, and I identify as a reverse bisexual reincarnated kangaroo, and Tumblr will hear about your insensitivity!" But, that being said, she does have a really cool ability, and this is a really interesting ID, because this adds a new type of play to Netrunner, a new type of deck style that we haven't really seen before, because forced discarding hasn't really been a thing. I mean, yeah, there's damage for the runner, but the runner making the Corp discard cards consistently really isn't something we've seen out of like a handful of fringe cards like Wanton Destruction and Hacktivist Meeting. But Alice will genuinely be the first deck we have that is specifically about making the Corp have to constantly discard, and that's something that Corp players have not had to deal with before. It's a play style that we really haven't seen in Netrunner at all, and it's going to be really interesting how that plays out and just how powerful that is. I think it's going to be really freaking strong. The other thing to point out is that a lot of people are freaking out about what happens after rotation when we have way fewer answers to asset spam. So, like, there's no more wizard, there's no more scrubber. A lot of people are wondering, what do we do against asset spam decks? And I'll tell you right now, I am of the strong belief that while yes, we do need, some all-purpose solution to asset spam like scrubbers, that the go-to ID against asset spam, so basically the new wizard, is going to be Alice. Now, she has a different, but still very effective way of dealing with assets than Wizard. Wizard made them really cheap to trash. Alice makes the Corp discard them so that they never get to play them in the first place. So that's arguably even better because they never even get the benefits of them at all. And obviously using Alice with Maw plus Hacktivist Meeting should make it really difficult for an asset spam deck to spam assets because they have to keep throwing them all. Now, the other thing I definitely want to point out is that while Alice should have a strong matchup against asset spam, she should also have an absolutely devastating matchup against combo decks. Because there is no way that with Alice plus her console Maw that any Corp deck will be able to keep their combo pieces in hand if Alice is doing anywhere near what she should be doing. There's basically no way. Alice basically reads install console, ruin any combo deck. She should have 2 really, really strong matchups against 2 very, very hated deck archetypes. So I imagine that she's going to make a big impact when she shows up. I imagine that after rotation, a lot of people who are on Wizard are going to be moving to Alice, because she should have a really strong matchup against both asset spam and combo decks. Her matchup against Glacier is probably not going to be that good, but I have a strong feeling that Alice will be a very good contender for, like, Anarch's new hotness ID. So definitely be on the lookout for what people can do with her, and I'm really interested to see how her playstyle turns out. Then again, Corps do have an awful lot of recursion right now, and I mean, Friends in High Places is everywhere. You can't slums advanced assembly lines or Steel Moon because they'll just use them before you can get to them. Then they'll friends them right back. I mean, it feels like there's something missing. I mean, yeah, you use Alice, you use Maw, you use Hacktivist Meeting, but it feels like there's a piece of the puzzle I'm not seeing. If only we had something that rewarded you for running archives over and over again. If only we had like a runner equivalent of Arc Lockdown, something that could help get rid of big fat problem cards that never seem to go away, like assembly lines and Moon and Friends in High Places and whatever else you cause her to discard. If only there was a... No, it couldn't be.
For thousands of years I lay dormant.
Anyway, now that I used up all my good material, let's do the rest of the pack. Next up, we've got Jaroginu, Jar Jar. Oh god, I regret saying that. Anyway, Jarugmerks, which is a unique resource clan connection that's 2 influence. It's 0 to install. When you install it, take a tag. Place 3 power counters on it, and plus an additional counter for each tag you have. When there are no power counters left on it, trash it. The Corp cannot trash it while there is another resource installed. Hosted power counter prevent 1 meat damage. So there's kind of a lot to unpack here. On its face, this card is clearly supposed to be some kind of new plascrete for us to use. It's also supposed to be more support for the clan mechanics and for Anarchs being the Tag Me faction, since you get more and more meat damage prevention the more tags you have. However, there's a couple things holding what at first looks like a really solid card back. So, right off the bat, the fact that it's a resource is a bad thing, because as we've been over before, anti-tag and bad cards that are resources are not good, because if you get tagged, the Corp can just blow up the resource before they try to kill you. Now, this does have the cannot be trashed if there's another resource down thing, which is definitely good, but this is also supposed to be some kind of tag me support card, because you get more meat damage prevention the more tags you have. But think about it in those terms. If you're in a full-out balls-to-the-wall tag me deck, when are you going to have enough resources out that this doesn't still eventually get trashed? If you're always tagged, the Corp can take their time blowing up your resources and then blowing up this. I mean, I guess you could do like a wireless net pavilion thing just to make it really annoying to do that, but I don't think this fits particularly well in a full-out tag me deck. Now, in a regular deck, this actually should work just fine as your new plascrete, because you still get minimum your 4 meat damage preventions, and you could still like land a siphon, install this, then remove the tags, and still get at least a little bit extra prevention on it. But I don't think it's really going to fit into the full balls out tag me thing, unless maybe you're doing some DLR nonsense, but that's rotating out anyway. But as just this is the new plascrete, I think it actually is really solid, because it gives you a plascrete that can't be blown up as long as you have some other resource down. So in a regular deck, just as a generic anti-meat damage card, this should still be really solid. So yeah, I'm welcome to see it, and it looks like instead of having one generic thing like plascrete, they're trying to give every clan like some form of access to their own version of anti-flatline, which is good. So yeah, definitely cool with this card. Now for Crim cards, we've got a new resource called Bug Out Bag. So that's a funny little name there. This is X to install, 2 influence. Place X counters on it when you install it. If you have no cards in your grip at the end of your turn, draw a card for each counter on it, then trash it. So this seems to be some kind of like anti-damage / draw mechanic card kind of glued together into one. It's a weird little card. It seems to be best against Jinteki, I would say. I really wouldn't use this against Weyland, because if they're trying to kill you, this only procs at the end of your turn, so it really doesn't do much for you if Weyland's trying to scorch you or boom you. This probably is best against Jinteki decks, where you run through a server, you take a buttload of damage, and then you draw back up at the end of your turn. Which even then there are better ways to do that, and plus you have to have exactly 0 cards in your hand, so you have to calculate this exactly right where your hand is completely empty before this goes off. So maybe it could see some weird use as some kind of awkward little draw mechanic in certain decks, but it's too situational and it's too awkward to really get any kind of consistent play out of, so I'm really not seeing this having a lot of use. This is kind of binder fodder. Cute binder fodder, but it's binder fodder. After that is a new criminal console. This is Maui. It's 2 influence, it's 5 to install, gives you +2 MU, and it says X recurring credits. Use these credits during runs on HQ. X is the number of pieces of ice protecting HQ. And this card is bad. You're welcome. Fortunately, after that, we do have one actually playable criminal card in this pack. This is Karos McIntyre. He's a resource connection, he's 2 to drop, he's 3 influence, and he says the first time you derez a piece of ice each turn, gain 2 credits. Also, he's unique. And I actually like this card. I actually like this card a lot. It honestly makes me wonder why this wasn't printed a long time ago, because it's such like a generically good effect. I really feel like this should have been printed like back in Honor and Profit or in Terminal Directive or something. Like this should have been an evergreen card, but hey, at least we got it now and it'll be around for a while. But obviously this is more of a push for criminals to be, you know, the big D-Res mechanic faction, and that's cool, and I definitely like how this just gives you some extra incentive to D-Res stuff all the time. Now if you're going to play this card, you obviously got to go whole hog into the whole D-Res mechanic, so lots and lots of D-Res cards in the deck. This goes fantastic in Los, because when they res stuff you get 2 credits, when they D-Res stuff you get 2 credits. It goes well in Con because it helps make the birds slightly more palatable. It just makes the entire, pretty much everything that you D-Res just nicer. That's pretty much what it does. It just makes everything D-Res related nicer, and that's a cool thing. I mean, there's not a whole ton to talk about here. If you like D-Res, play this card. It's good. It makes D-Res better. So, hey. Alright, up next for Shaper, we've got a new console. This is Daredevil. It's 5 credits to install, it's 1 influence, gives you +2 MU, and it says the first time you initiate a run on a server protected by 2 or more pieces of ice each turn, draw 2 cards. And I'm not really feeling this one. Now, it does round out the trio with Gauntlet and Cipher of 5 to install, 2 MU, 1 influence consoles. But of the 3 of them, I think Daredevil is easily the weakest. The big comparison here is Ubax. So do you play Daredevil or do you play Ubax? They're both 5-cost consoles that give you extra draw. But really the only advantage that Daredevil has is that it gives you 2 MU. That's pretty much it. The draw is way less reliable. You can't use it early game, so it doesn't help you set up well, because you have to be able to get through 2 pieces of ice and yada yada yada. It's just a really inferior version of Ubax. So I'm not sure what type of deck you would put this in. Because if there's a deck when you could use Ubax, there's no reason to put this in there over that. Maybe in some really, really weird fringe deck where you get set up, then you want to draw a bunch of cards while running. I don't know. Like there's really just not. Just play Ubax if you want it. Just play Ubax. So you know how every playgroup has that one guy who loves jank to the point where he will bend over backwards to try to make any seemingly powerful card work, no matter how inconvenient and inefficient it is? This is that guy's new favorite toy. This is Mass Driver. It is, get this, 8 credits to install, 2 MU, 1 strength. Decoder 3 influence. 1 credit plus 1 strength, 2 credits break a subroutine, and its effect is whenever you use it to break all subroutines on a piece of ice during a single encounter, the first 3 subroutines on the next ice you encounter this run do not resolve. And oh my god, this card is such a trap. This is like $100 bill sitting in the middle of, I don't know, an active volcano. It's like, you have such a powerful effect stapled together with some of the worst stats, like, of practically any icebreaker in the game. Like, I don't even know what to say about this. Like, this is like a pile of real bacon sitting in the middle of a bigger pile of fake bacon. Like, you want the real bacon, but it's just not worth putting fake bacon in your mouth. It's not gonna do it. Like with the, yeah, it basically reads every time you break a code gate, the next piece of ice doesn't happen. But it's 8 to install. It's 2 MU. It's only 1 strength. It's 2 to break. Like realistically, this isn't even good in kit because it is so easy for the Corp to play around it. Like, it only matters when there's even numbered pieces of ice in front of a server. It only matters when the code gates are on the outer side of those ice. It even matters specifically what those ice are. Like, I mean, if you've got an Enigma in front of an Archer, then this is maybe kind of sort of useful in that situation. If you have a DNA tracker in front of a Vanilla, who cares? Like, no one cares that you pass the Vanilla. This is you have no early game because this is 8-2 if you rely on this because it's 8 to freaking install. It's horribly inefficient to break. Like, I don't even know. It's like I know at least one guy who will try to make this work, and good for you for trying. But don't come crying to me when you realize how bad this card actually is. Jesus Christ. And that's it for the runner cards this pack. Yeah, there's only 7. There's a lot more Corp cards this pack than usual. Anyways, let's get on to those. For HB, first up we've got a new upgrade called Waroid Tracker. It is 2 influence, it's 2 to res, it's 4 to trash. And it says, whenever the runner trashes one or more cards in or protecting this server, including it, trace 4. If successful, the runner must trash 2 of their installed cards. So this is a pretty strong card, and seems to really be cementing HB as the new Acid faction, kind of pushing it away from the Glacier faction that it used to be, because this feels an awful lot like the new Ash. But instead of making a Glacier server harder to get through, this protects really important assets. And it's very good at doing that. I mean, at the very least, you can use this to, like, keep your Adonis campaigns and whatnot safe, which is good. You can also, of course, use it to keep really important stuff safe. Like, the idea that you can sprinkle this on top of, like, a Sand City grid and make it that much more obnoxious to get rid of, and then even if the runner does get rid of it, you can Friends in High Places both of them back, is absolutely nightmarish, and I am not looking forward to dealing with that. It's also good as kind of like an anti-Anarch tool, because it deals with ice destruction, because it works on cards protecting the server. So if you think you're going to get Cutler Eat or something, or if the runner just puts a parasite on one of your ice, you can then install this in that server, and then they have to deal with the consequences of that parasite. And it's pretty rare that the runner has 2 cards that they're willing to just let go of. So I don't know exactly where I'll see this, but I'm sure I'll see it somewhere, and I'm pretty sure I'll hate it. So, yeah. After that, we've got a very interesting and unique piece of ice. This is Loki, and not only is it unique, it's 5 influence. So it's 6 to res, it's 3 strength, it has no typical ice subtypes, it's just a Bioroid. When the runner encounters it, choose another res piece of ice. Until the end of the turn, Loki gains the subtypes and all the subroutines of that ice before its other subroutine, which is end the run unless the runner shuffles their hand back into their deck. And this is super weird. I mean, clearly the idea is that it morphs into another piece of ice you have on the board, which is cool. But I think probably the best use this has is in the early to mid game, because, you know, especially out of HB, you know, runners know to run early so they can click through all your Bioroids even if they don't have the right breaker out. This is a Bioroid that gains the subroutines of, you know, usually other Bioroids, but it can't be clicked through. So let's say, you know, early on you've got a Fairchild 3 res somewhere that the runner clicked through, they run somewhere else, you res this, they don't have their decoder out, and now this becomes a Fairchild 3 with an extra subroutine that can't be clicked through. And they have to just eat all the subroutines, and that's pretty nasty. That being said, it is 6 to res and only 3 strength, so later in the game, once the runner is all set up, you're mostly taxing just through number of subroutines. So, not entirely sure if it's that great late game, but I don't know. I'm excited to see like a one-of in this in some decks. It should be a nice spicy surprise to throw in here and there. So yeah, I like this ice. It's fun. And after that, for Jinteki, we've got I'm sorry. It's just so beautiful. No. No words. Don't spoil this moment with words. Alright, after that emotionally touching moment, let's get onto this new piece of ice. Miraju. It's 2 influence, it's 2 to res, it's a code gate, it's 0 strength. It has 1 subroutine that says the Corp may draw a card, then shuffle a card from HQ into R&D. And it has an extra effect. If the runner breaks the printed subroutine on it, they are now running on archives instead of passing it, and approach the outermost ice if any, and you de-res the ice. So, right off the bat, I find it hilarious that they're putting English into the Jinteki card names, because Miraju is just English for Mirage. Besides that, this is an interesting piece of ice. It's one of those annoying tax ice. I kind of sort of consider it similar to Tapestry, like a cheaper version of Tapestry, because it's something that the runner, it's a small tempo gain for the Corp that the runner just kind of has to let you have, unless they want to deal with a much, much more troublesome thing. Now, if you're running on archives, I believe this works that if this procs, it'll send you back to the beginning of archives, but I might have to look that up. The thing about this card, though, is that it doesn't end the run or hurt the runner in any way, and the shove them to archives thing only fires if they break the sub. So you obviously want to let it fire, but that doesn't really help you most of the time. I mean, this doesn't do much of anything on a scoring remote, that just lets you draw a card. But I think the best place to put this ice by far is HQ. Like, this ice should be much, much, much better on HQ than anywhere else, because it allows you to get agendas out of your hand. So if the runner is trying to run HQ in order to get agendas, they have to break this ice, which means they have to run through whatever's on archives and dives into whatever is in archives before they can actually hit your hand. This is also really, really, really good against indexing. But that's about the only time I would put it on anywhere other than HQ. But still, this probably goes really well in Ag Infusion, and it's a fun piece of ice. So I'm sure it's just more goofball things for Jinteki to do. After that, we finally get the missing Jinteki shipment. So this is shipment from Tenon. It's 2 to play, it's 3 influence. Play only if the runner did not make a successful run during his or her last turn, and place 2 advancement tokens on a card. Okay, so I think pretty clearly this is supposed to be the replacement for Trick of Light, which is cool, because I like Trick of Light, and this is very, very, very obviously like an automatic 2 or 3 of in any Tenon deck, because it's literally just Tenon's ability over again. And this is great in Tenon, because you can create a situation where the runner either can't make a successful run, or really, really, really doesn't want to. The thing that I don't like about this compared with Trick of Light is that it can still be shut off a lot more easily than Trick of Light could, because you obviously just make a successful run somewhere, and then whereas Trick of Light, you just had to have 2 advancement counters somewhere on the field, and Trick of Light was also a lot easier to play in other decks besides Tenon, whereas this is pretty much specifically for Tenon, and you could put it in other decks, but it's not going to be as useful. So I'm definitely expecting to see Tenon decks popping up after this pack, because there's this card and there's another card later on that's really good for Tenon. And I'm glad we have a replacement for Trick of Light, but I still kind of like Trick of Light better. Still, not a bad card. Anyway, after that, now we have a bunch of yellow cards that no one will ever use. Well, okay, I'm not going to completely skip over 3 whole cards, but come on. This one, you can only use it once per turn. It's based off the number of tags the runner has. Mid-seasons is rotating out. It's not really anywhere near worth it unless your meta is like swimming in Tag Me Anarchs or something, but other than that, it's just not good. This one, it slows down the runner and helps you if you're super flooded, but for a 5-3, it's nowhere remotely near strong enough to be worth running a regular 5-3. Now, if it was a 4-2, that might actually be worth it. Like, that could have actually been a solid 4-2, but a 5-3, no, it's just not enough. And this one is just like, remember Henry Phillips from the last pack and how that wasn't good enough? This is like that, but way worse. So, like, this is a coaster. So, yeah, I hate NBN. Anyway, on to some Weyland cards. Here we have a very awkward new agenda. It's a 5-2, so that's weird. It's called Meteor Mining, and when you score it, you may gain 7 credits. If the runner has at least 2 tags, you may do 7 meat damage instead. Well, this is a funny little card. I'm really not seeing a use for it. I mean, in general, you can score it out and gain like a net 2 credits from the money ability. I mean, getting to boom the runner off scoring an agenda is awfully tempting, but how often are you going to be able to score this while the runner has at least 2 tags? Like, that's gonna be pretty darn rare for that to happen, because unless they're tagging themselves. So again, like, this could be some weird tech card if the meta is just flooded with Tag Me Anarch decks or something like that, which could be a thing in the future. They are pushing a lot of Tag Me, but yeah, maybe there's some weird jank deck that can get this to work, but I'm really not seeing any general purpose for this, so yeah. Now, this next Weyland agenda, though, this is fun. Standoff, it's a 2-0, so Weyland's first 2-0. And it says, when you score it, each player, starting with the runner, trashes one of their installed cards until a player declines to trash a card. If the runner is the one who declines, draw 1 card and gain 5 credits. So, 95% of the time, there are 2 different outcomes to you scoring this out. Outcome 1 is that the runner just doesn't want to trash any of their stuff, so you gain 5 credits and draw a card, which you paid 2 credits to install advance it. So you get an agenda fodder, and you essentially spent your turn clicking for 3 credits, but also got a card on top of that. So it's like a cantrip that gets you a free disposable agenda. The other situation is that the runner does trash something, and then you just don't trash anything, and you got your fodder, and the runner blew up one of their own things. It is possible for them to trash something, you to trash something, and then them to keep going back and forth, but I think it's very, very rare that that's actually going to go back and forth. Most of the time, the runner is just going to let you have your 1 extra net card rather than blowing up their own stuff. But this is definitely a nice thing for Weyland to have. I mean, it's good agenda fodder for Corp that has a lot of sacrifice and agenda to do thing effects. Like, I'm really surprised we didn't get a card like this sooner. It's good for Jemison. It gives you fodder for your archers and your Tithoniums when those come out. You gain a little bit of tempo while doing it. Plus, let's not forget, it procs Hunter Seeker. I don't expect to see it everywhere, but the niches that this fits into, I think it fits into really well, and I'm definitely interested in trying to squeak this into decks here and there, so I'm definitely glad we have it. After that, we have the final Jemison tagline card. This is Success. It is 2 influence, it is 0 to play, it is another triple operation. As an additional cost to play it, you also have to forfeit an agenda. And advance a card X times, X equals the advancement requirement of the agenda you just forfeited. So, like Sacrifice and Audacity, this is absolutely horrendous outside of Jemison, but in Jemison, in combo with the ID ability, it actually lets you get away with some pretty fun and silly things. The thing here is advancing a card X times. Like, well, why would you want to do that? It's like, well, because in combination with the Jemison ability, it allows you to upgrade agendas really well. So you could turn your 2-1 hostile takeover into a 4-2 really easily, or if you have an Oberoth protocol down, you could turn that 2-1 into a 5-3 even, and that's super tempting. You could even turn a standoff, the 2-0, into a 3-2 with not very much trouble. So it's really, really good at playing some kind of never advance strategy and having a really good way to upgrade your smaller agendas into bigger agendas, which is what Jemison likes to do. Now, there's also talk of some super janky stuff you can do with this, because if you sacrifice a 5-3 in Jemison, you can score a government takeover. There's also nonsense like, because it does technically advance a card X times, not place X advancement counters on something, it does proc when you advance this effects that many times. So there's talk going around of some of the Weyland public agendas, some nonsense you can do with that. So I'm sure there's going to be some people poking around the jank lands with success, but this is another piece of Jemison equipment that I think goes well with the deck. So Jemison players, rock on. It's a really fun ID. Try it out. Now for the Corp neutrals, we have this thing, Wampoa Reclamation. It's an asset, it's 2 influence, it's 3 to drop, 3 to pop, and it says trash 1 card from HQ, add 1 card from archives to the bottom of R&D, use this ability only once per turn. So the usefulness of this card revolves entirely around a rulings verdict on it. My understanding of this card is that by paying the ability of trashing the card, like you can take an asset out of your hand, trash it for the paying the ability, and then take the agenda you just trashed and put it at the bottom of the deck. That's how I interpret this to be able to work, and it should work that way. However, if I've heard some arguments on the forums and Facebook page and yada yada about it not working that way, so I'm just going to leave it up in the air for now. If it works the way I think it does, where you can trash an agenda and immediately bottom that agenda, this is a card that could see some play as a neutral like Jackson replacement. I mean, the 2 influence is steep, but as long as it stays out, you have a very, very good way to be able to bottom agendas every turn, or whatever else you don't want to have. If it does not work that way, this card is substantially worse, because not only do you have to wait till the next turn to bottom that agenda, you have to trash an additional card. So, I don't know. This is really up in the air. I hope it works the way I think it does, but if it doesn't, it's much, much worse. So I'm gonna hold off on this one until we get a rulings confirmation. And last but not least, we've got a really nifty operation. This is mass commercialization. It's no influence, it's no credits to play, and it says gain 2 credits for each card with at least 1 advancement token on it. So right off the bat, I think it's really cool thematically how commercialization is rotating out, and they're replacing it with mass commercialization, which is just an infinitely better version of that card. And this card will definitely see some play. Remember what I was talking about, that Tenon support card? This is that Tenon support card. This is an automatic no-brainer 3 of in any Tenon deck, because this is, you get 2 credits for each card with an advancement token on it. In Tenon, this will effortlessly get you 8 to 10 credits for a 0-cost operation. This is so good for Tenon, it's not even funny. And for an awful lot of Weyland decks, this is still pretty solid. I mean, Weyland's got all the advanceable ice. You don't actually have to go super hard into the advanceable ice gimmick in order for this to be playable. If you have so much as 2 pieces of ice on the field with advancement tokens on them, or 2 anythings for that matter, this is a hedge fund that's 0 to play. Like, that's totally worth it in and of itself. Just a 0 to play hedge fund. So, yeah, and it only goes up from there. So it is a situational money card, so it doesn't go everywhere. But in Tenon and a good portion of Weyland decks, this is going to be something to definitely be worth considering, and I'm definitely expecting to see it. And this combined with shipment from Tenon, I'm looking for a significant surge in Tenon decks. So yeah, this is a nifty card, and I think it's really cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing it. Anywho, that's Blood and Water, so I will see you guys next time. Thank you and good night. Happy running.